We begin tonight with a shocking immigration matter where Nigerian Nobel Laureate Professor Wole Soyinka has been banned from entering the United States. Soyinka announced the development on Tuesday when he revealed that the US government has revoked his non-immigrant visa, denying him temporary access into the country. According to the Nobel Laureate, the US Consulate informed him of the revocation in a letter dated October the 23rd, 2025, without providing a clear reason for the action. He noted that he was unaware of any wrongdoing that could have warranted the revocation. The United States has in recent times taken steps to curb the influx of migrants into the country. Our reactions have begun to trail the revocation of Wole Soyinka's US visa. Now, rights activist Omoyele Sowore has expressed disappointment, describing the action as sad. Sowore's reaction followed Soyinka's revelation that the US government had withdrawn his visa, effectively preventing him from entering the country. Sowore joins the growing list of Nigerians who have criticized the act by the United States, which they describe as an unnecessary diplomatic embarrassment. I'm being joined by an immigration lawyer, Joseph Babalola, to help with some clarifications on the likely reasons for the visa ban. Professor Wole Soyinka, thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Babalola. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, the US Consulate says Soyinka's visa was revoked because, well, additional information became available, according to how they put it, after it was issued. But it didn't specify what exactly that means. So from a legal standpoint, how transparent does the US visa revocation process need to be? And are individuals like Soyinka entitled to know the exact ground for such a decision?
A very good question. All the grounds actually for B1, B2 visas, which is actually what Professor Soyinka has, is actually contained within what you call the FAM, which is the Foreign Manual of the United States. Now, if and when a visa is actually revoked, it's actually within the discretion of the United States government. The only ground that I can see, because I've absolutely reviewed it, the Foreign Advisory Manual, is governmental policy. Now, if his visa was revoked based on governmental policy, there are three steps. The first one is notification, which means it needs to be notified. The second one is that they will give him time to actually apply back to the embassy, stating reasons why his visa should not be revoked. And then the third thing is a decision, right, based on all the accounts. So I do believe that this will be resolved eventually, and eventually he will probably be made aware of the reasons why his visa was actually revoked.
Mr. Babalola, these are supposed to be executive or consular, at executive or consular discretion, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, meaning they can be made unilaterally without appeal. So how much discretion does a consular officer actually have in revoking a visa that's already been granted from many years from before? And what limits, if any, exists?
Well, the thing is that the embassies and the consulates, you know, the United States consulates, they have tremendous amount of power. And the Department of State, which kind of oversees them, gives them the latitude to make individual decisions in various countries based on the grounds that they deem fit, right, to be correct. So in most instances, when they make these decisions, the Department of State will not necessarily interfere with those. But the overarching consideration is governmental policy, in the sense that there are times when the decision actually to revoke or not to revoke actually comes from the United States government. And this is actually sent pro forma to all embassies around the world.
Okay, so this isn't just any traveler. I mean, we're talking about Africa's first Nobel Laureate for literature, a global cultural figure. Could a case like this carry diplomatic or symbolic weight beyond immigration law?
It does. And most of the time, you know, there are various channels that's actually being pulled. Even currently right now, I'm sure that the government is actually having conversations, you know, behind the scenes with the embassy to try and find ways in which this could be resolved. I do believe that Eventually, Professor Wole Soyinka, being a man of an international stature, eventually the visa that was actually revoked is going to be reinstituted, and he will probably be able to come to the United States. And it's also important that he was actually slated to actually have an event, in the United States, and because of this revocation, he can't attend anymore. So I do believe that this is a diplomatic row, and I believe that it will be smoothing over eventually.
Mr. Babalola, I'm worried. I'm worried whether as a citizen myself, if I should be worried. I mean, Soyinka says he's content with the revocation and that he won't reapply, but most people in that situation wouldn't have that luxury. Some people need these visas for education, career paths. It could be stalled when these revocations happen. So what recourse, if any, does an ordinary visa holder have when their U.S. visa is suddenly revoked without clear explanation? Can such a decision be challenged or reviewed?
It can. And there are various ways in which you can actually challenge it. I'll give you specifics. I had a couple of clients whose visa was revoked. I think it was a couple of months back. I'm sure you remember, who had F1 visas. This was something that was fought in court, and eventually the decision actually to revoke all these visas was actually withdrawn. The same way, with B1, B2s. B1, B2s are discretionary in the sense that B1 and B2 visas are visitors for pleasure, visitors for business. And if you're a visitor for pleasure, it's at the discretion, right, of the consulate to actually make sure that that visa is actually given to you, and you have to maintain the grounds for which you actually applied for it. So for instance, if you have situations in which after the visa is issued to you, maybe you commit a crime, or you do things that actually causes the United States government to be able to review you as a security risk, then your visa could be revoked. But there are ways in which you can actually challenge, right, the revocation in a way that it will be installed back to you.
Okay, and the U.S. recently shortened visa validity periods for Nigerians, if you remember. Now that this case raises eyebrows about, well, let's say, consistency and fairness, do you see this as part of a larger tightening of U.S. immigration policy toward Nigerians for whatever reason that might have been or not have been, or more likely a maybe one-off incident handled poorly in communication? Or was this based off of something that Soyinka could have done, because he also made reference to a comment that he made about the U.S. presidents from I think his past administration? What do you think?
Well, I believe that, based on so many things that is happening globally, I really don't want to say Nigeria as an exception, but I'll say globally. There's a lot that is going on globally because I'm a global immigration attorney, so I have a way of looking at things from a global perspective. One, Nigeria, like is the giant of Africa, and I believe that we have a huge megaphone. Anything that is said in Nigeria by a man with the stature of Professor Wole Soyinka will have a huge reverberation right around the world. So once he makes a statement, right, they take it very, very seriously. And sometimes, people could take, offense to these things. So it's important that, if and when we state things, that we state it very, very clearly. I believe there's a communication issue. I believe that if and when things are stated, right, we need to soften, right, try to soften the way in which it's actually delivered and make our intentions very, very clear. There is no gainsaying the fact that Professor Wole Soyinka has contributed globally, right, to the world of literature and on art. And a man of his caliber should not be in this situation. I believe that he has communication consultants, and those ones should be very busy right now engaging, right, with the embassy and the consulate to make sure that this is actually resolved, and it will be resolved. I'm very confident of that.
Mr. Babalola, let's take a little, I'd like you to please just hang on a second. I've still got one question for you, but I'd like us to take a brief listen to the Laureate, Professor Wole Soyinka himself here.
Myself guilty of. In all the years, decades I've been going to the United States. So obviously, it could not have been. I don't believe that they would have dug so far back into my murky past to unearth these two great crimes and then revoke my visa. So the reason had to be somewhere else. So I began to cast what have I done in recent times? Then my mind went to Oscar Arias, the former president of Costa Rica, I think Costa Rica, Arias, the Peace Nobel Laureate, whose visa also was revoked. And why was his visa revoked? Because he said that Donald Trump was ruling like an emperor. It served him right. I mean, how be calling the whole president of the United States an emperor? That was not very nice. So I looked to see whether I had committed any similar crime. And I remembered that I referred to him as the white version of Idi Amin. Now, you know, dictators are very difficult to please. I would have thought that he was pleased. I mean, Idi Amin was a man of international stature, a statesman, a first-class Democrat, you know. He was also, he called himself the King of Scotland. He called himself a liberator. He said, in fact, he was going to liberate Scotland from the grip of the British. In other words, we should look at...
So, Mr. Babalola, you heard there, first off, he laid antecedents for Trump's actions or the U.S. actions in revoking visas. He also remembers that he did call the United States president a white version of Idi Amin. So, it's been decades now. Nigerian scholars, artists, and also students, they've seen the U.S. visas as gateways or gateways, rather gateways, to global collaborations and visas. But here, when a high-profile figure like Wole Soyinka faces revocation, I'm wondering what you think the ripple effects might be that this would have on Nigerians' intellectual community. Could it dampen academic or maybe even cultural exchange with the U.S.? Do you see this happening from now on?
No, I really don't think so. I listened very carefully to what Professor Soyinka said. You know, he said all these things in jest, really. I really don't think that he actually meant, you know, all the things that he was talking about. Like, you know, Professor Soyinka is extremely brilliant. You know, everyone around the world, especially in the United States, you know, we look up to him, you know, when it comes to, you know, areas of arts and areas of literature and the whole nine. But be that as it may, it has all these things that is actually going on could have an effect, right, on international exchange of ideas. I do believe it could. But at the same time, I believe that we, you know, either in the legal community or those of us, you know, either in government or any other thing like that, we have a responsibility to resolve issues. And I believe that these issues could be resolved. I believe that words have effect. And sometimes, if and when these words are actually spoken, it could have the wrong effect as well. So I do believe that this should be taken into consideration if and when we're actually either criticizing or trying to say things that could come across, you know, in a very wrong or unintended way. But all in all, I do believe that there are ways to resolve this. And I believe that this revocation is not going to last.
All right, then.
And eventually, I do believe that his visa will be reinstated.
Well, Mr. Joseph Babalola, I want to say thank you very much for joining us all the way from Georgia. Now, please don't go saying anything in jest about the U.S. president now. Thank you very much, sir.
I will not. I promise you, I will not.